Hey guys! Tonight we slip quietly beneath the vaulted ceilings of an ancient Roman bathhouse, where the air smells faintly of olive oil, damp limestone, and bodies in varying states of enthusiasm. Steam coils lazily through the atriums, your sandals slap gently on mosaic floors, and somewhere in the distance, someone's arguing about barley prices again. Welcome to a day in the life of Rome's most surprisingly dramatic institution, the public bath timetable. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this, not from danger, but from sheer, numbing routine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're tuning in from, and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this sleepy little corner of history reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive just after sunrise, because rumor has it the early hours offer the cleanest pools and the calmest patrons. The sun hasn't fully cleared the skyline, but Rome's already humming. Vendors shouting, donkeys trotting, and the occasional clang of metalwork echoing from narrow streets. You rub your eyes, stretch your arms, and trudge past a temple where someone's halfway through a prayer to Mercury, god of, well, everything you probably forgot to pack. As you near the entrance to the Thermae of Titus, the first public bath built by an emperor, you spot the usual suspects already forming a line. There's Elias, the leather merchant with the questionable breath, and old Cassia, who insists every bath day is a chance to retell her triumph over back pain. You nod politely, because here, socializing is basically mandatory. The bathhouse facade towers above, grand and a bit intimidating. Corinthian columns frame the entry, and carved friezes depict mythological creatures that look like they're judging your hygiene habits. You duck under a marble arch and enter the vestibulum, a sort of bath lobby where early morning chatter is a mix of yawns, complaints, and passive-aggressive discussions about who, accidentally, skipped the line last week. Inside, things are already warming up. The furnace below the floors, the Hippocrates system, is rumbling awake, fed by sleepy workers who started long before you even thought about leaving bed. The walls hold on to the night's coolness, but soon the air will be thick, almost humid, as steam begins to weave through the halls like a nosy ghost. You fumble in your pouch for a tessera, a small, clay token that proves you paid your fee. It's a relic of Rome's obsession with keeping order, even when it comes to suds. Historians still argue whether tesserae were universally required, or just for certain classes of patrons. Either way, forgetting yours earns you a deep sigh from Flavius, the entry clerk who seems to run on sarcasm and watery wine. Flavius barely looks up as you hand over the tessera. He mutters something about fresh towels arriving late again, and waves you toward the changing room, or apoditerium. It's a bustling space of benches, cubbies, and body odor. Men disrobe unceremoniously, chatting about gladiator matches or the price of olive oil, while slaves fold garments and keep one suspicious eye on every sandal. You slip off your tunic, hand it to an attendant, and brace yourself for the tepidarium queue, the first step in the bathing ritual. It's not hot, not cold, just a warm, misty purgatory that gets your pores open and your inner complaints flowing. A teenage boy beside you mutters that his father made him come to become a man. Whatever that means. Another man, clearly already on his third visit this week, adjusts his towel like a toga of honor. While you wait, you examine the mosaic underfoot, a sea scene where dolphins ride triremes, and one questionable fish looks suspiciously like it's wearing a toga. Roman artists got bored too, apparently. As the line inches forward, the rhythm of the place starts to settle in. A woman walks briskly past with a strigil and flask of scented oil, her sandals slapping in time with a philosophical argument, echoing from the atrium. The debate, you gather, is over whether baths promote moral decay or just smoother skin. A senator nearby pretends not to hear, probably because he's due for a steam himself. By now, the faint gurgle of pipes kicks in. Roman engineers, bless them, managed to route hot water through a complex system of bronze channels and lead pipes. Though the lead thing is one of those historical oopsies, we try not to judge too harshly. You notice the walls beginning to bead with moisture, like the bathhouse is sweating in anticipation. There's a rhythm to this place, an almost hypnotic cadence to the flow of bodies, the hiss of steam, and the soft slap of wet feet on tile. Even the arguments follow a schedule: 10 minutes of light banter, 2 minutes of escalating complaint, and then a sudden drop into silence when someone mentions politics. Aulus, your neighbor in line, leans in and says, Pliny the Younger swore by this place. Claimed he got his best writing done after a proper scrub. Then he winks, as if you two are in on some elite secret. Finally, your turn arrives. The door to the tepidarium yawns open, and you step inside, greeted by warmth, marble benches, and the thick perfume of eucalyptus oil someone's overdone. You sit, close your eyes, and let the damp air settle into your bones. Today, you're just a citizen in the grand theater of Roman hygiene. Nothing flashy, no battles or betrayals, just the gentle drama of a day soaked in hot air and old routines. You've barely begun to settle into the steamy embrace of the tepidarium when you remember you forgot to get your soap oil. Rookie mistake. Not soap, per se, but a little amphora of strigil oil, a mix of olive oil, sometimes perfumed, designed to be smeared on and scraped off with a dull metal blade called a strigil. Without it, your cleanse is more philosophical than practical. So, reluctantly, you slip back out, wrap your towel with a gladiator's confidence, and shuffle toward the desks lining the entrance wall where a few groggy attendants sell oils and issue tokens. The front desk isn't quite a desk, more like a marble counter behind which Flavius, yes, still him, presides with the weary authority of someone who's too tired to care, but too prideful to step down. You clear your throat, raise a brow, and wait. Flavius is busy arguing with a young apprentice who apparently sold a senator's son the wrong oil yesterday. Something scented with myrrh instead of pine. The horror. You tap the counter softly. Flavius finally glances at you with the expression of a man who's seen one too many naked feet before noon. While, he asks, you nod. Regular, or do you fancy smelling like a provincial harem this morning? You go with regular. He takes a glistening bottle from the back shelf and slaps it on the counter. You hand over another to Sarah. He bites it. Yes, bites it. To test authenticity. Apparently, counterfeit bath tokens are a thing. Historians still argue whether this practice was widespread or just an urban myth perpetuated by bathhouse clerks like Flavius who love making a show of it. Transaction complete, you re-enter the tepidarium with your oil in tow, and just enough time to snag a decent bench. The room's warmth is mellow now, like someone turned up the thermostat in your grandmother's house and handed you a warm blanket. The hum of conversation is more subdued here, interrupted only by the occasional splash from the next room, or a snore from someone who's taken the relaxation part a little too literally. Soon, an attendant, Juno, a woman with biceps that could hoist a chariot, calls your name with professional indifference. She's wielding a strigil in one hand and a bored expression in the other. You rise, present the oil, and stand like a marble statue while she begins the rhythmic smear and scrape routine. Warm oil trickles down your back. The strigil follows, scraping away not just dirt, but every regret you've ever had about eating fermented fish sauce on toast. It's not painful, exactly, but it's not gentle either. Juno gets to work like she's trying to polish a stubborn amphora. Still, it's oddly satisfying. Your skin's dry, she mutters. Blame the winners, you reply. She grunts. In the next stall over, someone's telling a story about a friend who got a rash from shared sandals. You do your best to ignore it, focusing instead on the sensation of being exfoliated into a new tax bracket. There's Something almost hypnotic about this ancient self-care ritual. You wonder briefly if Roman emperors stood here, too, naked and awkward, while someone scrubbed their dignity away with a piece of curved bronze. The scraping ends. You're wiped down with a surprisingly fresh towel, laundered by the midnight crew, and sent off toward the next stage. But you pause, because the benches around you have started to buzz with one of the bathhouse's favorite pastimes, low-level gossip. Did you hear about Claudia and the centurion? No. What happened? She said she was going to her cousin's wedding in Ostia, but Lucius saw her at the games with a man who definitely wasn't her cousin. You sit, slow and deliberate, pretending to tie your sandal. You're not wearing any, so you can eavesdrop longer. Roman bathhouses, it turns out, functioned as community news hubs. Forget scrolls or proclamations. The real updates were shared here, amid oil and steam. Aulus, now towel-clad and wide-eyed, joins the conversation. I heard they're adding a new section to the Therma. Another calidarium, twice the size. Funded by some grain magnate who thinks sweating is the secret to immortality. Historians still argue. Says someone else with a smirk. Whether sweat prolongs life or just gives you fewer friends. You chuckle. But your internal schedule nags. If you linger too long, you'll miss your window for the warm bath. And in Rome, timing your bathhouse progression is an art form. Too early, and the calidarium hasn't reached its full infernal glory. Too late, and you'll be elbow to elbow with sweaty senators complaining about marble taxes. So, you rise, stretch your now oil-free limbs, and head toward the next chamber. The vestibule beyond the tepidarium transitions you toward hotter zones. The floor is warmer underfoot, the air thickens, and so does the smell, an herbal cocktail of laurel, mint, and damp ambition. A naked man glides past you humming something that might be poetry or indigestion. You pass a small fountain where someone has left a cracked comb. Beside it, a terracotta bowl filled with dried rose petals, a decorative touch or an offering to Venus. Hard to tell? You dip your fingers in the water, half tempted to splash your face, but decide against it. You've seen what goes in there. Just before entering the next chamber, a young boy in a too large tunic rushes past with a tray of strigils and a message in Latin you can't quite catch. His speed suggests urgency. His expression suggests he's late again. This is the rhythm of Roman hygiene routine, yes, but with little dramas baked in. Tokens misplaced. Oils overcharged. A forgotten sandal. A whispered affair. You're not just cleansing your skin, you're steeping in the complicated soup of civic life. You breathe deeply and preparing for the next room, and hear the familiar clink of a dropped tessera echoing behind you. Flavius's voice bellows from the distance. You again. I told you no token, no towel. You smile to yourself. Welcome to the daily grind, Roman style. You step through the arched threshold into the tepidarium's back corridor, where the air thickens just slightly and your skin begins to bead with a fresh layer of sweat. Not from exertion, but anticipation. Ahead lies the calidarium, but first you must conquer a more subtle trial, the tepidarium queue. Yes. Again, because this isn't just a hallway. It's the intersection where streams of bathers bottleneck, like ox carts, in a poorly planned forum. The line to the warm room curves lazily around a decorative column, its mosaic base chipped from years of sandal scuff. You wedge yourself between two disgruntled traders, one humming tunelessly, the other loudly explaining how his cousin was practically robbed at the spice market. The queue is slow-moving, sticky, and surprisingly political, because in this bathhouse, who sweats first matters. Technically, the schedule is supposed to be egalitarian. First come, first steamed. But as you inch forward, the rules begin to feel flexible. A man in a deep purple tunic, it's a clear status flex, nods at the attendant and gets waved through ahead of you. Murmurs ripple through the line. No one protests openly, but someone lets out a conspicuously loud sniff of disdain. Must be nice, you mutter. Must be related to someone. Your neighbor adds. Historians still argue whether bathhouses enforce strict time limits or if things operated more on the honor system. A system easily bent if your family knew the prefect's uncle's dog walker. The tepidarium itself is dimly lit by high windows that filter in shafts of dusty sunlight. The walls gleam with condensation and the scent of hot stone fills your nostrils. The line moves again. Ahead, a bather steps out, dripping, red-faced, and muttering about someone stealing his strigil. It happens more often than you'd think. In fact, one graffiti on a Pompeii bath wall reads, "Lucius is a thief. He took my best scraper." Some things never change. At last, it's your turn. You hand a towel to the attendant, nod like you know exactly what you're doing, and shuffle through the marble portal. The temperature swells immediately, like walking into the mouth of a yawning oven. The calidarium wraps you in heat. Not the polite warmth of the tepidarium, but the assertive, damp embrace of a room that knows its job is to make you glisten like a sacrificial goose. A soft hiss escapes the floor grates as more steam escapes. Above, the domed ceiling traps the heat and channels it back down in slow, rhythmic drips that land on your shoulders with the precision of a water clock. You find a space on a bench beside a man sculpted like a Doric column. He nods in acknowledgement but doesn't speak. Calidarium etiquette discourages idle chat unless it's about thermopolia lunch specials or gladiator stats. The room buzzes faintly with the sound of pores opening and regrets being sweated out. You lean back, let your eyes half close, and enjoy the sensation of becoming a lightly boiled human. But your serenity is short-lived. A small argument bubbles up from the far corner, where two bathers are having what looks like a time slot dispute. One claims he reserved this spot via official channels. The other scoffs. What channels? The bath clerk's nephew. A nearby bather laughs too loudly. A third offers to time them. Turns out some elite patrons bribe their way into extended steams, which irks the rest of the rotating crowd. Officially, everyone gets 15 to 20 minutes max in the calidarium. Unofficially, if your father funded the new cistern, no one tells you to move. You stare at the scene, half entertained, half melting. The man beside you shrugs. "Should have come during 4th hour," he says. "That's when the guards bathe. They keep it orderly." You file that away for tomorrow. Behind you, a fresher wave of steam rolls in, clouding the room further. The walls blur, the silhouettes of other bathers fading like ghosts into the mist. You hear someone whispering a poem, something about Venus rising from a wave, glistening and divine. Or maybe it's just an ode to a well scrubbed back, hard to tell. You lean forward to splash some warm water on your neck from a small basin carved into the wall. It's fed by a hidden pipe system. Roman plumbing at its finest. And yes, lead again. But who's counting toxins when you're this relaxed? As you sit, sweat trickling in pleasing rivulets, you notice a curious detail. Someone has etched a small message into the corner of the stone bench. "I was here. I didn't sweat for nothing. Marcus, a simple truth, carved in stone." You smile, and then you feel it. The tap on the shoulder. Your time is up. The attendant stands beside you, holding a bronze water scoop like a scepter of judgment. You rise with reluctant knees and shuffle toward the next chamber, muscles tingling, mind swimming in heat. One last glance over your shoulder reveals the next bather already sliding into your spot. No thank. You nod. No acknowledgement. Just the eternal Roman cycle of rinse, sweat, replace. You pass back into the warm corridor, where bathers drip and chatter like lazy fountains. Someone's humming again. Someone's definitely asleep, and someone, bless their heart, is already queuing for another round. You, however, have earned your break, but the day's only just warming up. You emerge from the calidarium looking like a wilted grape, limp, overheated, and slightly raisined. Your legs wobble slightly, your vision's got that steamy blur around the edges, and your brain is convinced you've been gently poached. But there's no time to collapse. Because next comes the part everyone pretends to dread, but secretly enjoys the strigil scrape and all its oily, awkward drama. You shuffle into the strigilarium, where a row of attendants awaits with practiced blank stares and bronze scrapers in hand. The room is slightly cooler, tiled in green serpentine stone that's probably meant to look elegant, but mostly just feels a bit clammy. The air carries the unmistakable scent of olive oil, sweat, and faintly sour herbal compresses. Lovely. A hand gestures you forward. Your strigil attendant is a stocky, no-nonsense woman named Marcia, with forearms like rope bridges and the kind of judgmental stare that makes you instantly evaluate your grooming habits. She doesn't say a word, just points to the low bench, uncorks your oil flask, and begins slathering you with all the efficiency of a painter prepping a wall for plaster. The oil's warm, pleasantly so, but the sensation of being rubbed down in full view of at least a dozen strangers still takes some getting used to. You try not to make eye contact with the baker on the next bench, who's chatting animatedly while his back is being scraped like parmesan. Marcia works in methodical swipes, dragging the strigil along your limbs with just enough pressure to make you flinch, but not complain. The metal curves squeak against your skin, pulling away the oil, sweat, and all the regrets from last night's dinner, which definitely involved questionable fermented fish pasty. You try not to twitch. Dry skin, she mutters, echoing Juno from earlier. Winter. You repeat. She grunts in what you hope is solidarity. Behind you, an argument breaks out between two young men. One insists the other used his flask of imported Egyptian rose oil without permission. Voices rise, fingers point, and an older man with a towel over one eye mutters something about the decline of discipline. An attendant separates them with the practiced ease of someone who's done this thrice already today. The social politics of the strigil station are layered. First, there's who gets served first. Wealthy patrons often skip the informal queue, much to the annoyance of more punctual commoners. Then there's oil envy. Imported oils, perfumed blends, and novelty mixes. A recent fad includes adding a splash of vinegar. Why? No one agrees are status symbols. If your oil smells like cheap olives, expect to be side-eyed. One man proudly announces that his oil was gifted by a merchant cousin from Hispania, infused with orange blossom. He declares loudly. Someone else sniffs and says it smells like sheep. Marcia snorts and keeps scraping. Historians still argue about the exact ingredients of some of these ancient oil blends. We know they included everything from lavender to cinnamon bark, and even crocodile dung. Yep. Some believed it helped with skin conditions. That's either medical ingenuity or ancient trolling. Once Marcia finishes with your back, she gestures for you to turn, and the awkwardness levels spike. Facing your scraper is always a test in maintaining dignified small talk. Busy today? You ask. She shrugs. Wait until the Saturnalia hangover crowd shows up. You nod gravely, unsure what else to say, when someone's holding a curved blade to your chest. Nearby, a boy drops his strigil, and it clatters loudly on the tile. A flock of heads turns. He blushes crimson and mumbles an apology. His attendant picks it up and smirks. First time. The scraping resumes, and you surrender to the strange intimacy of being methodically oiled by a professional. It's oddly calming now, hypnotic. The scrape, the wipe, the slap of a towel as another bather rises, clean and pink, skinned, ready for gossip and grapes. Once finished, Marcia gives you a curt nod and a final towel swipe. Try coconut oil next time, she mutters. You nod respectfully. You have no idea what coconut is. You move on, rejoining the stream of bathers funneling toward the next chamber. A lounge of sorts, a social crossroad known as the palistra. But on your way, you pass a side room where slaves and attendants are cleaning the used strigils in a bucket of cloudy water. You pause to observe the ritual. They scrape the collected oil and grime off the tools and dump it into a side urn. Used to make soap, someone says behind you. You turn to find a toothless old man with a knowing look. Soap? You ask. Well, not soap, but something like it, used for things. You decide not to ask further. The next room is livelier. The palastra, a kind of open, air courtyard, partially shaded by colonnades, is where bathers gather post, scrape for refreshments, conversation, and low-intensity arguments. It's a transitional space, half gossip den, half performance arena. Two older men are deep in debate about Senate reforms, while a trio of women in stylish stollis gossip about someone who tried to wear a dyed toga. A scandalous. Only magistrates can wear purple. There's a low buzz here, relaxed but alert, the kind of energy that suggests people are halfway between a nap and a philosophical epiphany. You sink onto a stone bench, towel still clutched like a security blanket, and enjoy the cooling breeze drifting in from the atrium. A woman nearby fans herself with a palm leaf and asks no one in particular if they think Jupiter sweats. Someone replies, "Only if Juno's yelling again." The crowd chuckles. You smile. Your skin's tingling, your muscles are loose, and your mind is quietly preparing for what comes next. Because soon it's lunchtime. Your stomach grumbles with the subtlety of a disgruntled senator. The oil's been scraped, the sweat's soaked into the towels, and your body is clean-ish. But now comes one of the real reasons people love the bathhouse. Not just for steam or gossip, but because around midday, this marble swathed sanctuary becomes a delicious, chaotic social buffet. The crowd has changed. The early risers and hygiene purists are filtering out, replaced by a more diverse, and let's say, animated group. The bathhouse now swells with voices, smells, and heat. It's no longer a quiet oasis. It's rush hour at the wet Roman mall. You sidestep a slippery patch of floor. Near the fountain, probably spilled oil. Definitely nobody's job to clean. And head toward the colonnaded patio, where the vendors gather with their carts, trays, and barely legal poultry. This is not your modern protein bar and juice smoothie crowd. Roman bathhouse-sized snacks are inventive. One stall is roasting nuts over a brazier, the air thick with smoky cumin. Another vendor slices figs with the flair of a street magician, handing samples out to hungry bathers like some kind of fruity Dionysus. But it's the mystery meat stand that gets the most attention. You approach because curiosity is your worst trait. A short man with a stained apron gestures proudly to his steaming tray of sausages, dark, glossy, and oddly iridescent. You ask cautiously what's in them. Peacock, he says confidently. And fennel. Someone behind you whispers, "He told me goat and something spicy yesterday." Another mutters, "Definitely rat." Historians still argue whether exotic meats were regularly consumed at these midday intermissions, or if vendors just claimed their food came from far off provinces to raise prices. Either way, that sausage. It tastes vaguely of licorice and deep regret. You chew thoughtfully, pretending it's delicious, while watching the human theater unfold. To your left, a senator in a towel is deep in conversation with a baker's apprentice. An interaction that would be unthinkable on the forum floor. To your right, a group of freedmen, now wealthy merchants, are laughing about grain shipments, elbowing each other like frat boys at a toga party. This is where Roman society does its strangest dance. Status dissolves slightly in steam. You still know who's rich, because they complain louder. But here, everyone's technically naked. Figuratively and literally. Titles don't echo as loudly over hot coals and footbaths. A man balancing a tray of honeyed pastries walks past. He pauses, recognizes someone, and sits down without invitation. Turns out, he's a former tribune. Now retired, now pushing puff pastry for fun, or possibly boredom. He tells you that in his day, baths were quieter, more about purification than pastry, and you nod politely while licking fig paste from your thumb. Behind him, two children sprint past, squealing. Probably not supposed to be here, but someone's servant got distracted. They're being chased by an old man in sandals shouting something about the sanctity of communal spaces. He trips on a drop date and curses Jupiter in 5 different tenses. You retreat to a shady bench and observe the social blender churn. Here's a freed slave eating lentils next to a silk trader. There's a young noblewoman sketching floor tiles with a charcoal nub while her bodyguard snores nearby. Someone's flute playing in the far corner. Not well, but enthusiastically. Someone else's mid-rant about a new bathhouse opening across town that uses marble imported from Carthage. Imported? As if we don't have perfectly good marble here? The horror. The conversation turns, inevitably, to politics. A group discusses a senator's recent scandal involving forged edicts and a suspiciously large number of decorative geese. You don't catch all the details, but it sounds juicy. Then someone suggests a wager on the upcoming gladiatorial games. Bets fly like sandals in the apoditerium. 2 denarii says the Thracian beats the Gaul. 3 says they both pass out from heat stroke. In the background, a man in a tunic too nice for his sandals tries to sell pamphlets about stoicism. No one is buying. Literally or philosophically. Nearby, a philosophical debate is heating up. One group argues that bathing promotes moral decay, softens the will, and distracts from duty. Another insists that cleanliness is next to civic virtue. A third group is just eating olives and waiting to see who gets slapped first. You remember that Cato the Elder once criticized bathhouses for promoting laziness and immodesty. He reportedly bathed in cold water to keep his resolve sharp. Then again, Cato also thought cabbage cured everything, including snake bites, so... Someone waves to you from across the courtyard. It's that man who got bumped in the tepidarium line earlier. He's grinning now, a sausage in one hand, a cup of posca in the other. You join him. Posca, a mix of vinegar, water, and herbs, is surprisingly refreshing after sweat and oil. Tart, a little sharp, and very much an acquired taste. You know, he says, this is the best part of the day. You agree. Because here, amid all the odd snacks and oil-slicked drama, you are inside the rhythm of the city. Not a visitor, not a footnote, but a living towel-clad participant in the great Roman wash cycle. You lean back, belly full of fennel, skin still tingling from scrapes, and for a moment, just a moment, you think, maybe civilization's not so bad. You rise from the bench, slowly, like a loaf of bread reluctantly leaving the warmth of the oven. Lunch is digesting. Your muscles have gone from strained to syrupy, and your mind, buoyed by posca and peacock sausage, is just fuzzy enough to forget what comes next. But your body remembers it's calidarium time again, and this time, you want the good spot. Here's the thing about the calidarium, you've already sweated in it once, but that was just the warm-up act. The real connoisseurs, the midday elite, they come now. When the heat is at full strength, the stones radiate like a sun-baked amphitheater, and the steam practically peels your regrets off like citrus rind. So, you make your way back through the atrium, re-enter the central corridor, and spot it, the gold, tiled calidarium, glowing faintly through rising vapor like a jewel box in a fog machine. But as you near the arched doorway, your dreams of prime placement shatter like a dropped amphora. There's a sign. An actual, literal sign scratched into waxed wood and hung on the doorway with imperial indifference. Reserved. Do not enter. You blink. Reserved? A nearby slave shrugs and says, a senator booked it for his afternoon steam. You suppress a groan. Booked. Since when do calidariums take reservations? Apparently, if your father's estate funds half the marble in the bathhouse, you can bedtime itself. Historians still argue whether elite patrons had the right to claim exclusive slots in the bathhouses, or if this was just a social overreach that annoyed everyone quietly. Either way, here you are, shut out, towel-clad, and scowling like a toga-clad thundercloud. You're about to turn away when a younger man, a clerk by the look of him, leans in conspiratorially. There's another calidarium. Smaller. Old side of the complex. Not as hot, but no reservations. You hesitate. The idea of a second-tier hot room feels insulting. But the idea of waiting 40, 5 minutes in a hallway with Flavius's judgmental sighs feels worse. You nod and follow the clerk. He leads you down a lesser, used corridor, slightly darker, less polished, and filled with the kind of quiet echoes that suggest bad acoustics and secret deals. You pass a mural of Hercules flexing with exaggerated biceps. Someone's drawn a little chicken on his shoulder. Eventually, the clerk stops at a narrow archway. Here, he says, it's intimate. You step inside. He wasn't kidding. The alternate calidarium is about half the size of the main one, dimly lit, and smells faintly of damp scrolls. But it's empty, except for one old man sleeping under a towel like a makeshift tent. You take a spot on a low bench, sigh, and lean back. The heat is gentler, less aggressive, like a warm blanket rather than a kiln. Not the dramatic steam opera you wanted, but peaceful in its own right. The stone under you hums faintly, heated by the same hypocaust system that powers the rest of the complex. These underfloor furnaces, tended by a team of suit-covered, underpaid heroes, push heat through the pillars and chambers like a city-wide bloodstream. If one of them slacks off, this room goes from spade to sad puddle in minutes. A hiss nearby tells you the system's working fine. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you almost forget your resentment about the reserved sign. Almost. The door creaks open, and a familiar voice enters. It's the man from the sausage stall, towel still heroic, looking around suspiciously. Oh, you found the backup calidarium too. You nod. He sits with a groan. It's not the same, he says, but it doesn't smell like politics. You both chuckle. Around you, the quiet buzzes. Someone coughs. The old man under the towel shifts and lets out a snore that sounds like a dying goat. You lean back, sweat beginning to rise again, and start to appreciate this room not for what it lacks, but for what it avoids. No shouting, no reservations, no senators applying eucalyptus oil with the flair of a stage actor. Just you, some honest heat, and the simple joy of not being elbowed by an ambitious merchant trying to promote his cousin's new Strigil brand. You think back to a quote from Seneca. He once complained that bathhouses were too loud, with their grunting men, slapping towels, and shouting mass uses. It's like being inside a wrestling match conducted on top of a quair. You wonder what he'd say about this room. Probably more tolerable. You glance down at the floor mosaics. Here, the artistry is simpler. No mythic creatures, just repeating patterns of waves and palm fronds. The grout's chipped, but the craftsmanship still whispers through. A little reminder that even the lesser rooms were made with pride. A small drip lands on your forehead. From the ceiling, condensation stirred by steam. You wipe it off, then lean your head back and let the rest fall where it may. You may not be in the main calidarium, but you are in a real one. And honestly, that's enough. The man next to you lets out a deep sigh. You echo it. Towels cling. Sweat rises. And the furnace below hums steadily. An ancient engine powering not just warmth, but the very rhythm of Roman life. You emerge from the quieter calidarium with skin slick and red, eyes slightly glazed, and towel clinging like a second toga. Your heart's beating slow and steady now, proof that this entire public bath ritual isn't just about cleaning. It's about resetting, cleansing the chaos, or at least reducing it to a dull, manageable hum. But now that your pores have been boiled into submission, it's time for what you might generously call a refueling stop. Because somewhere between Strigil etiquette and marble politics, your body realized it's burned through every bit of mystery sausage and fig paste you gave it. So you wander back toward the Thermopolium strip, a line of snack stalls clinging to the outer edge of the bath complex. These are less formal than the midday vendors in the Palestra. Fewer status games, more grease, more guesswork. The smells hit you first. Sizzling onion, fried dough, and something distinctly vinegary. The air is thick with steam and spices, like someone's trying to pickle the very atmosphere. You follow your nose to a vendor who's aggressively chopping what looks like eel, maybe, possibly snake. It's on a stick, and it's sizzling. You ask what it is. See chicken? He says, deadpan, you stare. He grins. Or mullet? Depends who you ask. You buy one anyway, because your dignity left around the same time you were scraped by Marcia. As you choose, it's rubberied. You find a spot by a low stone wall where other bathers are parked like lounging sea lions. Some are chatting. Others are napping. A few are juggling leftover olives between their toes. One man is trying to sell boiled beans from a portable brazier, shouting, "Guaranteed to make you regular?" Which somehow isn't the least appetizing pitch you've heard today. The social tone has shifted again. We've entered the late afternoon lull, that strange Roman interlude when everyone's too full to argue, but too awake to nap. The result? A lot of slow blinking, quiet conversations, and the occasional off-key song about Mars and barley. To your left, a group of men are discussing whether the new aqueduct project will ever finish. They promised running water to the Esquiline, one says. It's been 3 years. All we got was running gossip. To your right, a woman tells her friend about a dream she had where Minerva opened a bathhouse on the moon. No one questions this. You realize now that bathhouses weren't just spas. They were the heartbeat of daily life. People didn't just come here to scrub themselves raw. They came to see and be seen, to hear news, to pass notes, to flirt, to scheme, to snack. It's a little like a mall food court. Had a baby with a philosophy salon, and then decided everyone should wear towels. Just past the fig vendor, a man is setting up a table with little clay figurines. You approach. He gestures proudly. Saturn, Juno, Mercury. And this one's a new blend. Half goat, half lawyer. You raise an eyebrow. Personal commission, he explains. The clay is warm from the sun. The figures are cute, in that blessed by boredom way. You buy a miniature Mercury holding what looks suspiciously like a wine jug. Back near the fountain, someone is setting up for a knucklebones match. The Roman version of jacks, but with more gambling and minor injuries. A circle forms. Coins are tossed. A cheer rises as a young woman throws 4 sixes in a row and does a tiny victory dance. The rhythm of the bathhouse beats on. It's not about the drama now. It's about the downtime duels, friendly, low-stakes competitions that keep the mind from melting in the heat. You even join a game, tossing the bones, pretending you remember the rules. Your opponent is a boy of maybe 12 who beats you without blinking. He doesn't gloat. He just nods solemnly and says, "You owe me a date." You hand him a fruit. He accepts it like payment from a defeated gladiator. The sun slants lower across the atrium tiles. Shadows grow longer. Someone starts strumming a lyre. Badly. But no one complains. There's a softness now to the space. You lean against a pillar, sipping the dregs of your Posca, watching people nap, laugh, argue gently over whether Mars or Apollo had better calves. Mars, obviously. A bird lands on the rim of a nearby basin and immediately regrets it. Too hot. It flaps off, squawking indignantly. You smile. This is what the drama of routine really looks like. Small stories. Tiny triumphs, lauder shared over eel on a stick in lukewarm vinegar wine. Arguments about architecture. Debates about hygiene. Someone trying to balance a grape on their navel for reasons known only to Jupiter. The serious part of the day is done. No more scraping. No more status climbing. Just the long, slow float of a Roman afternoon slipping into dusk. You stretch? Your joints creak. Your belly is full of strange meats and modest victories. And somewhere deep inside the stone walls, the fires are still burning, the water still flowing, and the next wave of bathers is arriving, ready to rinse, snack, gamble, and gossip their way through the cycle again. But for now, you lean back, close your eyes, and let the warm breeze wash over your toes. By the time you stand and brush fig crumbs from your towel, the sun has slouched noticeably across the sky, casting long golden beams into the marble corridors. Afternoon has shifted into its next act, and with it, the bathhouse's mood evolves yet again. Gone are the bustling merchants and senators. The families and retirees have begun to shuffle home. Now comes the younger crowd, bored teens, deep thinkers, and people with too much free time. You wander toward the Natatio, the open-air swimming pool, cooler than the steamy rooms, but still surrounded by columns and Roman drama. It's the social equalizer. Here, rank blurs again. Everyone flops, floats, and paddles like lazy dolphins regardless of pedigree. You dip a toe in. It's bracing. A little shocking after the warm fog of earlier, but refreshing in a slap, you awake kind of way. You ease in inch by goosebumped inch until you're submerged up to your shoulders. Around you, the pool echoes with splashes, shouts, and the sharp pluck of a poorly thrown sponge hitting someone in the face. Two boys are racing laps, turning the Natatio into their personal chariot track. A group of girls near the shallow end are whispering furiously, occasionally bursting into laughter that ricochets off the stone. Nearby, an older man in a straw hat floats belly up, humming tunelessly, and probably pretending he doesn't hear the gossip about him happening 10 feet away. You make a lazy circuit around the pool, backstroking past snippets of debate. But if the new grain ships arrive, prices will stabilize. He said, the senator's daughter eloped with a flute player. What's a Saturnian poem if the feet don't scan? The blend of ancient politics and poetry lessons would be exhausting if it weren't so soothing when delivered half submerged. Back on the pool deck, a pair of teenagers are playing knucklebones again. This time with stakes, the loser has to carry the winner's towel around like a banner. There's much teasing. The game gets heated. A small crowd gathers. It's practically a spectator sport now. You watch as the girl wins 2 throws in a row. The boy accuses her of distracting him with her hair. She offers to braid it. The group laughs. Even the elderly floater cracks an eyelid. You dry off slowly and wander toward a quieter section of the bathhouse, a side garden built into the complex, shaded by olive trees and marble nymphs with too much sass in their smirks. This is where the philosophers lurk. 3 men in various states of toga and towel are deep in argument, gesturing wildly with cups of watered down wine. You catch phrases like the tyranny of indulgence and virtue through denial and have you seen the shape of his sandals? One of them notices you eavesdropping and waves you over. You sit, mostly because the bench is in the shade and your legs feel like boiled reeds. They're arguing whether the entire public bathing system is a distraction, a slippery slope, so to speak, to moral decay. You know, one says, in the old days we bathed once a week, and we were stronger for it. Stronger? Or just smellier? The second retorts. The third man, clearly drunk, raises his cup. To sweat, may it keep the thoughts from curdling. You're not sure what that means, but you raise your imaginary cup too. Historians still argue whether bathhouses were truly centers of community virtue, or if they were decadent indulgences disguised as hygiene. Truth is, probably both. Rome was always better at blending contradictions than resolving them. As the sun dips lower, shadows stretch across the floor mosaics. One boy has started a balancing act on the edge of a fountain, arms out, 1 foot wobbling. A woman nearby is laying bets. The boy falls, of course. Splash. Cheers. Towel thrown in triumph. Another teen tries to juggle 3 apples. Fails. One rolls dramatically into a footbath. A slave sighs and fishes it out with a ladle. The air's cooled a bit now. The hot breeze from earlier has softened into a gentler exhale. Like the whole bathhouse is winding down after a very long, some very damp part is singing. Off key, yes, but bold. Probably trying to impress someone, or ward off napping. It almost works. You sit back, stretch, and feel your joints protest one last time. From where you are, the bathhouse feels less like a building and more like a living creature. Breathing, churning, constantly changing shape, depending on who enters and who lingers. A man walks past carrying a tray of dates and cheese, muttering about someone failing to return his personal sponge on a stick. Another day, another scandal. You realize you've lost track of time. Not in a terrifying, "What day is it?" way, but in a gentle, "I suppose I'll head home when the stars show up" kind of way. And that is exactly what this place is designed for. Because the bathhouse isn't just about hygiene, or heat, or snacks, or gossip. It's about suspending the rest of the world. About giving your brain a place to float, your body a place to breathe, your towel a place to dry. And for the first time in what feels like hours, you are still peaceful. Until someone shouts that a donkey has wandered into the atrium again. You sigh, stand, and go see. You round the corner back into the central atrium, still towel, clad and slightly damp, just in time to witness the donkey incident in full bloom. The anagray, mildly disoriented specimen with one drooping ear and the soulful eyes of a creature who's seen too many toga parties, has wandered in through the delivery arch, trotted straight past two stunned attendants, and is now standing in the middle of the floor chewing what appears to be a scroll. A small crowd forms. Naturally, someone tries to shoo it with a sandal. Another suggests it's an omen. A donkey appearing before dusk. Clearly, Neptune is displeased. Another bather, clearly 2 cups of Posca past reasonable, yells, "Give it a towel! It's earned a scrub!" You slip by the commotion, hoping to avoid being roped into whatever slapstick evacuation is about to occur. It's not your problem. You're on a mission now. Because while donkey drama is entertaining, there's something much more pressing. The hot plunge is cold. You hear it in whispers before you feel it. A chill in the conversation. A murmur of discontent. They say the hypocaust failed. The furnace crew walked out. They say. And hear the speaker lowers their voice like they're discussing state secrets. The water is tepid, you quicken your pace. Sure enough, when you reach the calidarium, something is clearly wrong. The air isn't thick and sultry. It's damp and vaguely uncomfortable, like someone's been boiling socks nearby. The tile underfoot is cool. Not cool like a breeze. Cool like disappointment. A bather steps out of the main pool, arms folded, face twisted into a grimace. It's cold. He says, "I came here to melt, not freeze like some barbarian from Germania." You peek inside. The plunge pool, normally steaming, hissing, and perfumed with eucalyptus, looks sad. The surface is still. A few bathers brave it anyway, lowering themselves slowly like philosophers entering an existential crisis. One yelps. Another swears they felt a fish brush past. You test the water with a toe. Cold. Not ice, but cold enough to cause a full body rethink. The kind of temperature that resets your digestive system and makes you question whether soap is worth it. You step back, wrap your towel tighter, and spot the source of the drama. At the far end of the room, 2 hypocaust workers are in a heated discussion with a supervisor who looks about 5 seconds from exploding. "We told you the vent ducts were clogged. And I told you to stop stuffing olive pits in them. I was saving them. For the potter." This continues, loudly. The workers stomp off toward the back corridor, muttering about ungrateful citizens and one more outage and we'll all be fired by a goose. You glance at a nearby bather who shrugs and says, "Welcome to Roman maintenance. Heroic when it works. Hilarious when it doesn't." Historians still argue how frequently bathhouses dealt with breakdowns like this. Some records suggest regular repairs and highly organized maintenance crews. Others say the hypocaust was a patchwork of miracle and guesswork, especially once the funding ran dry. What you do know is this cold water in a calidarium is a travesty, a betrayal, a personal insult from Vulcan himself. So now the bathhouse enters its most chaotic phase, unscheduled adaptation. With the calidarium out of commission, people begin shifting. The frigidarium, usually the last cool splash before exiting, becomes the main event. Now there's a line to plunge, and everyone's pretending to enjoy it. "It's invigorating," one man says, teeth chattering. "It's medicinal," another adds, clearly lying. Even Flavius is there, towel tucked tight, looking miserable and shouting something about refunds. Someone points out that entry was one to Sarah, not a contract with Apollo. Flavius glares and wanders off to find something to sigh at. You find a wall bench, sit down, and watch the spectacle unfold. A woman stands at the frigidarium's edge, like a priestess about to sacrifice herself. She makes a show of it, arms raised, deep breath, noble nod. She steps in, and immediately screams. Everyone applauds. In the distance, you hear hammering. The furnace crew has started repairs, and by the sound of things, their tools are more theatrical than effective. One hammer strike, 2 angry curses, 3 suggestions that maybe Rome should switch to hot springs and be done with it. The donkey, by the way, is still wandering the halls. Now it's wearing a towel around its neck and being followed by 2 children who have decided it is the bathhouse's mascot. You approve. The malfunction has sparked more than just cold feet. It stirred up emergency gossip. Rumors ripple through the crowds. Was it sabotage? Is the water cursed? Did someone throw a lead goblet into the furnace out of spite? Someone starts chanting mock prayers to Vulcan. A few join in. It becomes a half-hearted sing-along that fizzles once someone gets the lyrics wrong. You can't help but admire it. This is Roman resilience in towel form. A broken bath, a cold plunge, and still the bathhouse endures. People find ways to laugh, or complain, or splash each other with a vengeance bordering on therapy. Eventually, a young man rushes in with news. The east side furnace is back online. A cheer erupts. It's the happiest anyone's been all afternoon. Bathers begin migrating like sweaty, slightly insulted flamingos toward the eastern wing. You follow. Not because you need more heat, but because after a hiccup like this, you need closure. You need steam to wash away the memory of that toe touch test. And as you walk, you pass the donkey again, now reclining near a brazier, surrounded by admirers, possibly the most relaxed creature in Rome. Steam has returned. Order sort of restored. The eastern calidarium, less grand, more functional, is now buzzing with activity. You pass through a cloud of freshly formed mist, inhaling the sharp tang of burning cedarwood. The hypocaust system here is purring contentedly, a victory chant in furnace form. Every bather is smiling just a little too smugly, the way Romans do when they survive minor disasters and need the world to notice. You settle onto a newly vacated marble bench, still warm from its previous occupant, and allow the heat to creep back into your bones. A few bathers chat quietly. One woman massages her temples, probably trying to melt away the memory of that unfortunate frigidarium scream. Another man paces like a lion, wrapped in his towel like a toga of existential dread. But the peace doesn't last long. From somewhere near the main atrium, a commotion bubbles. Not the donkey again, thank Jupiter, but something subtler, stickier moral panic. You hear voices rising in sharp contrast to the sleepy mumble of the calidarium. You lean slightly, craning to catch snatches of conversation drifting in like smoke. Indecency? In front of children. Wasn't even fully clothed? The gods are watching, and they are not impressed. Ah, yes. The bathhouse's recurring guests star religious purists. Every so often, a small group of philosophical or religious reformers, priests, temple assistants, or just really sweaty moralists, descend on public baths to wag fingers and deliver unsolicited sermons. Today's flavor appears to be from a newer temple devoted to Vesta, or maybe Isis, or a hybrid fringe sect that combines both and adds their own hygiene commandments. Roman spirituality was nothing if not customizable. You exit the calidarium just as a group of robed men and women file into the atrium. They're not here to bathe. You can tell by their posture, their covered heads, and the looks of distaste being projected like javelins. One of them stands on a low bench and begins to speak in a booming voice, which is impressive considering the echo. Brothers, sisters, look around you. Is this not a house of temptation? Do you not see how decency melts with the steam? A few bathers pause. Others roll their eyes. One man sipping Posca mutters, "It's Tuesday." Can't we save the doom for Saturn's day? The speaker continues. Romans, bathed in moderation. Now, we parade our nudity! Our indulgence! We roast our minds like boar over fire! What next? Prayers in the tepidarium. Scandals in the strigil rooms. You catch sight of Flavius off to the side, arms crossed, enjoying the show. He turns to you and says, last week it was a cult of Neptune protesting how much water we use. Said we were offending the tides. Historians still argue just how common these public protests were, while there's solid evidence that Roman baths drew criticism from certain philosophers and conservative circles. Most records suggest the majority of Rome either ignored them or found them a welcome change from the usual afternoon chariot results. Today's protest reaches its peak when one woman, mid-lecture about Venusian indecency, trips on a discarded sandal and nearly falls into the fountain. A collective gasp. She rights herself, glares at the footwear, and continues preaching with only slightly less divine authority. The bathers, for their part, respond with the usual spectrum of apathy to passive defiance. A group of younger patrons begins splashing each other in the frigidarium, louder than necessary. Someone starts humming a love song, likely banned by the Temple of Modesty. One cheeky merchant casually strolls past the sermon with nothing but a fig leaf and a smile. It's botanical, he offers helpfully. Eventually, a few bathhouse guards appear. Not soldiers, just big guys with big brooms and low tolerance for philosophical theater. All right. One says, that's enough moral clarity for today. Let's keep the sanctity outside, The protesters grumble, gather their scrolls, and retreat with dignity slightly singed. As they go, a towel-clad teenager claps slowly, mock reverent. The applause spreads. A few even cheer. Someone tosses a date into the air like confetti. And then, as quickly as it began, the bathhouse exhales. You walk back toward the central basin, the past whispers and laughter. The protest will be remembered briefly, repeated inaccurately, and in a week or two, replaced by a new scandal, possibly involving a senator, a kitchen sponge, and a misinterpreted poem. You hope. Now the atmosphere feels lighter. A bit rebellious, even. A subtle celebration of the very things the protesters condemned. Warm skin, damp marble, shared stories and shared steam. You notice more people sitting close together, conversations deepening. Someone quotes Horace. Another replies with a bawdy rewrite. You take a seat near the fountain, which now features a garland of laurel someone looped around the donkey's neck. Yes, it's still here. No one's sure where it came from, but it's clean. Sort of. As dusk begins to tint the high windows with rose gold, you realize this bathhouse, like Rome itself, is a delicate balance between piety and pleasure, between order and chaos, between shouting prophets and silent steam. And for now, the pleasure wins. The sunlight has softened now, melting into warm amber and slipping across the bathhouse floors like honey. The mosaics glow, the marble pillars catch golden edges, and torches flicker to life along the outer halls. The evening crowd has begun to filter in, quieter, less hurried, and far less sweaty than their earlier counterparts. Families. The pensive types who like to bathe as if they're rehearsing for a philosophical painting. You stretch your arms above your head, spine cracking faintly, and feel that glorious post-steam slowness settle over you like a second towel. It's that particular brand of tired that isn't exhaustion, it's contentment. You've been roasted, rinsed, scraped, oiled, chilled, fed, mildly scolded by moralists, and you've lived to tell the tale. And now, you watch as the bathhouse slips into its most graceful phase, twilight bathing. The atrium glows, now lit with 100 small flames. Lanterns hang from iron hooks, a few float on the surface of a decorative basin. It's quieter, for sure, but the bathhouse doesn't go silent. Not here. Not ever. A woman walks by carrying a lute, plucking a few idle notes. A boy dances half-heartedly to her tune, while his father adjusts his sandals and mutters that the towel's too tight. At the far edge, A group of older women share roasted chestnuts from a paper cone, whispering like conspirators. You wander toward the apoditerium, the changing area, just to check if your belongings are still where you left them. The cubbies are less crowded now. Attendants move slowly, folding towels, sorting sandals, and rescuing the occasional stray tunic. You don't change yet. Just take mental inventory. Your sandals, still tucked under bench 7. Your tunic, hanging awkwardly, slightly damp but unmolested. A small victory. Then you spot the pile of lost items stacked beside the main entrance. A clay oil flask, a single sandal, a necklace, a scroll with half a poem about bees. You wonder who left these behind. Were they distracted? Too clean to care? Or did they simply walk home in blissful forgetfulness, unaware their sandal was still sunbathing on a marble bench? You lean down to inspect the scroll. The handwriting is wobbly, clearly written post calendarium. The poem ends mid-sentence. And when she dipped her foot in the basin, the ripples were like, and that's it. No closure. Just a poetic cliffhanger, waiting for a bored towel, clad stranger like you to find and imagine an ending. A soft ahem from behind you. You turn. It's an attendant, holding a sandal and looking accusatory. Yours? You shake your head. He nods once, turns, and adds it to the growing pile. The sandal's partner is probably at a dinner party somewhere, wondering what it did wrong. You re-enter the corridor and head toward the tepidarium, just for one last warm sit. The evening crowd is different in posture. They sink slower, speak softer. No philosophical debates, no splash wars, just low hums of laughter and the gentle slosh of feet moving through shallow water. Someone lights incense near the doorway. The scent of frankincense mixes with eucalyptus and whatever oil Flavius spilled earlier. It's not unpleasant. You settle onto a marble bench near a carved statue of Venus, her nose slightly chipped from age or someone's unfortunate fall. You watch as bathers slowly lean into each other, speak in whispers, or sit with their eyes closed like statues learning how to dream. A boy nearby is dozing with a damp scroll across his chest. A girl dips a sponge into a shallow basin and carefully wrings it over her feet. The rhythms have slowed. Even the donkey, curled now under a vine-covered trellis, is snoozing with its legs tucked neatly beneath it, like a house cat that wandered into a poem. This is the soft underbelly of the Roman evening. Everything is still working. The fires below, the pipes above, but with a grace that only comes after the crowd has thinned and the day's drama has been neatly folded beside a used towel. Then a quiet stir behind you. You turn to see a woman standing near the lost and found pile. She picks up the sandal, pauses, smiles. Found you, she says, and slips it on like a reunion scene from a very modest fairy tale. She walks away, one sandal squelching faintly, and you swear you hear the statue of Venus smirk behind you. You linger a bit longer, but even you can feel it, the bathhouse is preparing for night. Not closing, not yet, but transitioning. The hot rooms cool down. The Hippocaust fire gets stoked one last time by the night crew. Torches are trimmed. Attendants begin moving through the corridors with a soft rhythm of finality. It's not over, but it's winding down. You breathe in, letting the humid air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly. The marble is still warm beneath you. The sounds of laughter now sound like lullabies. Even the water itself seems calmer. And somewhere outside, the first star flickers above the tiled roof of the bathhouse. A reminder even here, in the echoing heart of civilization, night still finds you. You linger just a little longer in the tepidarium, unwilling to give up the day's last sips of warmth and light. But eventually, like every other slightly steamed citizen in this tiled cocoon, you must surrender to the final ritual, retrieving your belongings. Or, as it's often known, the Great Sandal Hunt. The apoditerium is quieter now, the echo of earlier chatter replaced by the soft shuffling of feet and the occasional sound of damp fabric slapping marble. You make your way to your cubby, bench 7, third row, and peer inside. Your towel, check. Your tunic, Still looks like it lost a fight with a scroll cart, but present. Your sandals. You pause. One sandal. A left one. You dig around, lifting stray tunics and half-folded linens, but no luck. The right sandal is missing, and suddenly, this once tranquil changing room transforms into a crime scene. You scan the room like a suspicious librarian. It's too late for another sandal mix-up. Theft. Possible. Prank. Likely. Forgetfulness. Always. You flag down a passing attendant. An older man with a face like carved walnut, and the posture of someone who's seen too many misplaced shoes and not enough gratitude. Missing sandal. You report, holding up the lonely left like evidence. He sighs. What color? Brown. He gives you a look. Everything here is brown. You correct yourself. Brown, with a bit of green mold on the strap. Eh? He nods and gestures you toward the locker room annex, a mysterious little alcove near the back that houses all things lost, left behind, or mildly mysterious. You shuffle there barefoot, your lone sandal slapping pitifully against the marble. Inside, the annex is dimly lit and smells like forgotten history. Shelves are stacked with unclaimed tunics, scrolls, soap flasks, and a surprising number of single sandals. You begin your hunt, scanning for that distinct moldy charm only yours possesses. As you search, you overhear whispers. I think she left her necklace again. Was it the same one as last time? No, last time it was a brooch. Or a boyfriend. It's locker room intrigue at its finest, apparently. Misplacing items in the bathhouse is practically a sport. Some even claim doing so boosts your chances of getting talked about. After all, nothing stirs a sleepy social circle like someone losing a golden ring by accident. Historians still argue whether bathhouses had formal lost and found systems or if it was all honor-based, with the occasional bribe to a helpful attendant. You suspect it's the latter. Finally, you spot it, your right sandal wedged between a half-eaten fig and a figurine of Apollo with a broken layer. You snatch it triumphantly and slip both sandals on, now feeling fully dressed despite still being otherwise barely clothed. As you exit the annex, the social temperature has shifted. The bathhouse isn't just winding down, it's quietly folding in on itself. The crowds have thinned. The attendants are stacking towels. The final conversations are whispered. And even the donkey has been coaxed outside with the promise of leftover chickpeas. You pass a young couple near the atrium, half-dressed and completely lost in each other. They speak softly, unaware of anyone else. A poet's dream, if slightly soggy. Elsewhere, two friends exchange a handshake that's longer than necessary. You overhear snippets of their farewell. Same time next week. Flavius lets me in. Tell him you're carrying my oil. He likes me. You smile. You pass the refreshment stall one last time. The fig seller waves. You wave back, then realize you never bought a fig, and he probably thinks you're someone else. You wave again anyway. He nods solemnly. You've been inducted. Just before the exit, you spot a small crowd gathered around a newly written bathhouse notice, scratched neatly into a clay tablet and propped on a stand. Tomorrow, main calidarium undergoing pipe inspection. Cold baths until third hour. Don't blame the furnace crew. Someone reads it aloud. A groan ripples through the group. You imagine Flavius somewhere nearby, sighing deeply without explanation. Then, near the wall, you hear it a whisper. A pair of attendants murmuring about a senator who was seen leaving with someone else's sandals again. Another whispers about a wealthy widow who tips in coin and compliments. Someone else claims the donkey was actually meant for a wedding delivery, but got lost. All these murmurs swirl and blend into the quiet end of day hum. The gossip is low level, the intrigue mostly harmless, but it's as much a part of the bathhouse as steam and soap. You can almost feel the walls absorbing it, storing each whispered story in the cracks between tiles for tomorrow's bathers to inherit. You make your way to the exit, sandals slapping softly, the cool night air just beginning to snake through the open arches. The sound of the city outside is muted now, still alive, but distant, like a lullaby sung by traffic. Before stepping through the threshold, you glance back. The bathhouse, lit by torchlight and echoing with the last few voices, seems to glow from within, like a lantern, or a memory. And there, sitting on a bench near the entrance, is an old man with a towel draped over his head and a smile on his face. He nods at you. "You'll be back," he says. You nod. Because of course you will. Where else could a sandal mystery, a fig-fueled argument, and a donkey parade count as a typical Tuesday? The air outside is cooler now, brushing your skin like silk pulled from a damp laundry line. Night has taken the sky in full, the stars blinking lazily as if stirred from their own thermal dreams. But your journey through the bathhouse isn't quite done. Not until the final patrol is complete, and the heavy doors are sealed with their customary clunk. You're lingering, one of the last to leave, and that means you get to witness something few others ever stick around for. The night watch. You hear them before you see them. Boots on stone, soft but deliberate, echoing through the near, empty corridors. The watchmen are already making their rounds, their tunics dark, their expressions blank but observant. Not soldiers, but not quite civilians either. The kind of men who know exactly how many people came in, and more importantly, who never left. They nod to you as you pass near the atrium. One tall, one short, both wearing belts cluttered with keys, small scrolls, and the occasional folded towel confiscated for being too flamboyant. You watch as they pause at the now empty calidarium, inspect the furnace grates, count the stray strigils left behind like bronze breadcrumbs. Then one of them gestures to a scribe perched on a low stool nearby. Notes are taken. Quietly, efficiently, like every mislaid sandal and half. Eaten date will one day be reviewed by the Senate. You return to the outer hall, where the last few bathers shuffle toward the exits, their silhouettes lit by torchlight. Most are bundled in damp tunics, their hair still dripping, their bodies glowing faintly from residual heat. You nod politely at a couple exiting ahead of you, who nod back and promptly trip over a low water trough. They're fine, laughing. Still slippery from laughter or oil, it's hard to tell. One by one, the attendants move through the chambers like gentle ghosts, checking benches, straightening baskets, and muttering about wax drips on the floor mosaics. Someone's whistling. Not a tune, just a single note, soft and rhythmic, as they sweep puddles toward the central drains. Then come the braziers. Their fires are not extinguished outright, just coaxed into coals. Red gold embers blink like sleepy dragon eyes beneath the grates. The final warmth of the hippocaust is slowly allowed to fade, like the heartbeat of the building winding down. At the eastern edge of the complex, a familiar figure returns the donkey. Yes, still here. Now calmly tethered to a post near a laurel bush, contentedly chewing a leftover sandal strap. Not yours this time. It watches you with the same lazy interest it's shown all day, as if to say, "You again?" Still sweaty. An attendant nearby feeds it a fig. No one questions this. Then, as the last handful of visitors shuffle through the atrium, a bell sounds. Soft, low, and unmistakably final. Not an alarm. More like a lullaby for marble. It's closing time. You're gently herded toward the final gate, not rushed, just reminded that this world of steam and sandals now belongs to someone else, the night crew. You glance over your shoulder one last time and spot a team of laundry boys arriving with baskets slung across their backs like heroic towelsmiths. They laugh, elbow one another, and begin the noble task of sorting hundreds of damp linens into piles reusable, regrettable, and clearly cursed. A skinny one lifts a towel, sniffs it, and recoils. Not this one, he mutters. Another grins. That's a senator's? They all cackle. Historians still argue whether Roman bathhouse linens were truly laundered daily or simply rotated creatively. You suspect these boys are a backbone of a very optimistic laundering system. Further down the corridor, a worker fans the last embers in the caldarium furnace while muttering under his breath. You catch, "If the pipe bursts again tomorrow, I'm leaving for Britannia. You wish him luck. Steam in Britannia? Good luck finding a warm puddle. As you reach the final arch, you pause. The bathhouse behind you is dim now, its laughter stored away, its drama momentarily paused. You hear the iron bolt slide into place behind the main gate. A final click. The end of a cycle. And yet, even as the fire dims and the sandals are sorted, you know it's not truly sleeping, because while Rome roars and riots and rules the known world, the bathhouse just waits for the next dawn, the next oil, the next argument over peacock sausages. And you walk into the moonlight, hair damp, feet clean, brain gently poached. Tomorrow, you might return, or maybe not, but the rhythm will continue, with or without you. And deep beneath the marble and mosaics, the furnace still hums. The moon is bright now, hanging over the tiled roofs like a silent watchman of its own. But you don't walk far. Not just yet. There's one more layer to peel back. The hidden underworld that makes all this marble, mist, and mild chaos possible. You slip quietly around the bathhouse's side, where a narrow service gate stands slightly ajar. The air smells faintly of ash and lavender. A whispered invitation. You step through, past stacked baskets of crumpled towels and amphorae of half-used oils, into a world most bathers never see. Welcome to the realm of the midnight shift. Down a stone ramp and into the subterranean corridors, the floor becomes rougher, the ceilings lower. The luxury fades. Here, Rome's famed engineering buzzes like a sleeping giant. You follow the faint orange flicker of firelight until you reach the furnace heart. The Hypocaust crew is already at work. A trio of broad, shouldered men in suit, smudged tunics shuffle fresh logs into open stone mouths. The furnaces breathe. Slow, glowing exhales of fire licking through iron grates and into the pillars above. You feel the warmth immediately, but it's a working warmth, purposeful, less spa, more forge. One of the men, Lucianus, judging by the scratch tag on his belt, nods at you, looking for a shift. He jokes, tossing a split log into the maw with casual flair. You shake your head. He shrugs. Your loss. Best seat in Rome down here. Always warm. And the ghosts never talk back. You're not entirely sure if that's a joke. Nearby, another worker stirs the embers with a long iron rod, muttering about airflow and suit ratios. You hear the clang of metal as someone checks a pipe connection, then a splash as another tests the aqueduct lines feeding tomorrow's basins. Even here, the systems continue. Scrubbing, burning, prepping, a mechanical heartbeat that never fully stops. You pass by rows of folded linens laid on racks to dry over radiant stones. The heat helps, but it's the laundry boys who do the heavy lifting. Hauling, wringing, muttering to each other in the tired shorthand of those who clean after the party's over. A tall one hums a slow tune as he slaps towels against a basin rock, the rhythm almost musical. You watch a small boy, no more than 9, painstakingly brush suit from a water jug. He glances at you once, expression unreadable, then goes back to work. This isn't a glamorous space, no mosaics, no statues of gods, just suit, steam, and labor. But it is crucial. Without these midnight crews, Rome wouldn't wake to warm marble. Senators wouldn't sweat out bad policy decisions. Lovers wouldn't exchange whispers by the pools. And Flavius would have nothing to sigh dramatically about. Historians often skip these layers. The grime behind the glory. But the bathhouse was only possible because of them. Every elegant arch and aromatic oil was balanced by an equal weight of sweat in the shadows. You continue past a storeroom filled with odd supplies, piles of sponges, jars of imported frankincense, replacement strigils, and, peculiarly, an entire stack of folded donkey blankets. You choose not to ask. At the far end, you discover a tiny chamber where the water, tenders sleep in shifts. 3 men on low pallets, snoring under thin linens, boots neatly lined like respectful soldiers. One stirs in his sleep and mutters, "Not too much pine oil. It turns the basins green." You leave them be. Above you, the sounds of Rome's nightlife drift faintly through the ceiling. Distant laughter, The clatter of cart wheels, the bark of a street dog challenging a shadow. The contrast is stark. Above, indulgence. Below, function. And yet both are part of the same ritual. You climb back toward the surface through a narrow staircase, pausing at the top to look back one last time. The Hepacost crew is still moving, now stoking the final furnace for tomorrow's pre-dawn batch. Lucanus waves lazily. Tell the poets we did their sweating for them. You smile and push open the small wooden door into the night. The bathhouse looms behind you, torchlit and serene. To the average passerby, it's asleep, quiet, innocent. But now you know better. It breathes. And under its floor, beneath the laughter and perfumed sweat, there's a whole other world. A world that sweats differently, but just as hard. You step away from the bathhouse one last time, your sandals tapping softly on cobbled streets, still warm from the day's sun. Behind you, the grand stone archways begin to blur into silhouette. Torches flicker low, casting dancing shadows that ripple across the curved exteriors. And inside, deep beneath the marble and mosaic, the fires still hum softly. But for you, the journey ends here. One full Roman day, lived by the tick of a very damp clock. You walk slowly, not out of weariness, but from the quiet weight of saturation. Not with water, though there's been plenty of that, but with the rhythm. The rhythm of a civilization that didn't just conquer or build. It soaked, steamed, scraped, and gossiped its way into eternity. Every minute of today was choreographed in ancient time, from the early rush for Tessera, to the hiss of midday calidarium rage, to the final fig, scented whispers of twilight. You were an accidental actor in a well-worn play with no script, only sandals and steam. You pass a vendor closing his fig stall, whistling as he wraps leftovers in olive leaves. He nods as you walk by. You pass a child chasing a torchlit shadow, giggling as though Jupiter himself made the night for hide and seek. And you pass a temple doorway where a priest quietly sweeps fallen petals. Last remnants of a festival you missed because you were too busy sweating your soul out in the tepidarium. And now, with the moon watching from its high perch and the streets growing quieter by the breath, you understand the bathhouse differently. It was never just about cleaning. It was never just about heat or soap or the poorly labeled sausages. It was about slowing the machine of empire, pausing the grind of chariots and taxes and land deeds. It was the empire's exhale, the one place where senators and slaves, merchants and poets striggled themselves down to the same raw human shape, naked, tired, slightly pruned. You recall that bit of graffiti from earlier. I was here. I didn't sweat for nothing. Marcus, you get it now. It's not about leaving your mark. It's about remembering that even history's dustiest days were made of people who ran late, forgot their sandals, cheated at knucklebones, and whispered about love near basins of oil. As you reach the edge of your insula, you look up one last time. The stars are clear tonight. The breeze is cool. The world is paused. And beneath the moon and mosaic roofs of Rome, 1,000 bathhouse stories tuck themselves in for the night. And now, you're lying in bed, maybe not marble, not Roman, but warm in its own way. The light has dimmed. The air is still. Your fingers are relaxed, your eyelids heavier now, and all around you, the echoes of warm water, distant laughter, and the soft scraping of a bronze strigil begin to drift and fade. You feel the steam again, not on your skin this time, but in your memory. The kind of warmth that comes not from fire, but from presence. From a day lived inch by inch, sandal by sandal. From a space where nothing needed to be accomplished, yet everything still happened. Wake, walk, wade, scrape, snack, float, listen, laugh. It was all so mundane, and all so deeply human. No heroes, no emperors, just you. A towel, and time. Let the last whispers of the bathhouse slip away now. Let the flickering torches sputter into dreams. Let Flavius, wherever he is, sigh his final sigh. You're done for today, fully rinsed, thoroughly steamed, and as Roman as you'll ever need to be. So go ahead, let your thoughts drift like steam toward the ceiling. Let your breath deepen like the marble pools, and let yourself, finally, fade